Hi, this is going to be a short video just introducing you to some of the materials that you need for both your lecture and your lab. So we'll first start with books that you might need. So I'm going to get my stack here together. So for lecture, the assigned microbiology textbook is this wonderful textbook, Microbiology Basic and Clinical Principles by Lords and Norman. This is a great book, however, it's very expensive, around $200. So for those of you that where money might be a little bit tight, we have another wonderful alternative that I'm going to try to use more and more. And this is a free online microbiology textbook by OpenStax. So I'll be sending you the access information so that you can access this free online. In addition, you can order a hard copy. I just bought this hard copy of the OpenStack microbiology book for $25 this summer. I can't believe that it was so reasonable, so inexpensive. This textbook is approved by the American Society for Microbiology, ASM, which is in the United States, and actually an international organization of microbiologists. So it is an excellent textbook. For lecture, you'd want to make sure that you have a binder for your notes, for handouts, for study guide questions, and I would recommend that you have a second binder for lab. A lab binder, a lab notebook will be really important. For lab, we have a new publisher that published our microbiology lab manual, and unfortunately, it was a little bit misleading. The lab manual ended up being incredibly expensive, I think around $70. And I know that's a lot of money to pay for a lab manual. As an experiment, I'm going to try to have online instructions for each of the labs. And for those of you that might not be able to afford $70 for the lab manual, I'm hoping I can provide enough information and instruction on our Canvas site that you can succeed in the lab without having to buy the $70 lab manual. In addition, there are older versions of our lab manual that might look a little bit like this, the Microbiology Bio 440 Laboratory Manual, dated fall of 2012. But this lab manual still is current for most of our labs. So if you maybe have a friend or acquaintance that has the older version of our Bio 440 lab manual, this would work just fine. Optional would be a photo atlas. Some folks like to have the photo atlas in the lab with them as they're looking at specimens. We have photo atlases here in lab that you can borrow. We ask you not to take them home so other folks can borrow them. You can get college microbiology lab photo atlases used online very reasonably, so you might want to check that out. Okay, and then moving into lab materials, we use masking tape for tape labels for our microbial cultures, so it's helpful if at least one person per team of 4 or one person per micro pair has masking tape. It just makes your life more efficient. In addition, you're going to need a lab coat, right? Preferably cotton, long sleeves as long as possible to protect as much surface area as is possible. Our biology stockroom sells used laundered lab coats very inexpensively, so you might want to check with them to see if you can find a good inexpensive lab coat. Bring your lab coat in a plastic bag with your name on it. You can store these here in the micro lab. Very importantly, is part of our personal protective equipment, our PPE, the lab coat is an essential part, and also indirect vented safety goggles. If you buy these at the Sac City bookstore, make sure you're getting the indirect vented model. That's the only type that's approved for use in the microbiology lab. Also, as part of PPE, you'll need disposable gloves. Please don't bring latex, as a lot of folks have latex allergies. Again, you might want to wait until we do the locker check-in and see if maybe you and your micro partner, maybe one of you wants to buy a box, and you'll split the cost of the box of gloves. You will use several pairs of gloves. So maybe start out with one box and see how far it will take you. In your lab syllabus, it says required is matches or lighters. We could actually eliminate this now. We're so fortunate we've been able to transition from using the open flame Bunsen burners, which is pretty hazardous. We've had a few fires. Now we're using Bacti incinerators, so we no longer have to light them. They're powered from electricity, so we can skip the matches and lighter. We did mention that having a lab notebook, a binder, is going to be crucial for your lab notes and your lab observations. You're going to have lab homework packets and study guide questions. We do lots of labeling. Labeling is really, really important in lab. My preference is to use a fine tip permanent marker. Again, we'll be using these to label our agar plates and our microbial cultures grown in tubes. We're going to be doing lots of sketching, lots of drawings, and color is really important in microbiology, so you might want to bring either a set of crayons or a set of colored pencils. We do have colored pencils here in the lab, but often the colors you want, of course, they're all gone, the ones that you want. Micro, microscope slides. They sell these little kits in the Sac City bookstore, but I would actually recommend don't buy these kits. Kind of expensive for 12 slides, 12 cover slips. I would recommend, again, maybe once we get checked into lab and you know who your partner is and your lab team will be, maybe one person can offer to go online and order a big box of microscope slides. These boxes contain about 72 slides. And folks in the past have said that a box of 72 slides was sufficient for 4 people in a microbiology team. This will really reduce the cost of buying your microscope slides. And then all the members in the team, of course, would pitch in to pay their share price of buying this box of slides. We'll be doing lots of calculations in lab, so make sure that you have a calculator. Very importantly is for those of us that have long hair, we need to make sure our hair is tied back at all times. If you have long hair, like your hair can fall into the Bacti incinerator and get burnt, or fall into your microbial culture and get contaminated, or fall into some of the chemicals that we work with. So very important that your hair is tied back at all times. Apologies, I might not have mentioned it, but lab shoes are shoes where your toes and your heels are covered. So we call those closed-toed, closed-heeled shoes. Some people just bring a pair of old tennis shoes and leave them here in their lab as lab shoes. The lab shoes are part of our PPE, our personal protective equipment. When we're doing hazardous labs, if you don't have your full PPE, so that's your lab coat, your disposable gloves, your indirect vented goggles, and your lab shoes, you can't participate in lab and you end up losing points. I think that does it for this video. So again, so looking forward to seeing you all in lab. Take care.